Let's dive right in. We're going to try and make sense of the AI revolution, specifically these large language models that have popped up pretty much everywhere. How are they really changing things, and why is it all happening so darn fast? It really does feel like one day AI was this niche, kind of nerdy thing, and the next, it's on your phone, in your search bar, everywhere. So the big question we're tackling today is, how did it all get so smart, so incredibly fast? We're going to trace that explosion and see where it's all headed.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start at the beginning of the LLM revolution. Then we'll meet the current heavyweights in the ring. We'll look at the rise of the open source challengers, take a peek at the next big thing, GPT-5, and wrap up by talking about your role in all this. Okay, let's start at square one, the beginning of the LLM revolution. This is really the story of how AI went from a cool lab experiment to a tool that millions, if not billions of us are using every single day. So what in the world is a large language model, or LLM? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a super powered autocomplete. It's been trained on a truly insane amount of text from the internet, books, you name it. And at its core, it's not actually thinking, it's just making a very educated guess about what the next word in a sentence should be. That simple idea, powered by something called the transformer architecture, is the key that unlocked everything. And the progress here, it's just been wild. Back in 2018, GPT-1 had about 117 million parameters. Think of those as little knobs the AI can tune to learn. Just 2 years later, GPT-3 had 175 billion. That jump from millions to billions is what turned these things from interesting toys into tools that could write like a human. And since then, the race has only gotten faster. Okay, so why do you care about all this tech talk? Well, because it is completely changing the way we work. Yeah, it's automating the boring stuff, but the real magic is how it's becoming a creative partner, a co-pilot for coding, a brainstorming buddy. And that means that getting a handle on this tech isn't really optional anymore. It's fast becoming a massive strategic advantage. Now, that kind of explosive growth doesn't happen in a vacuum. It created a brand new arena, which brings us to the titans of the industry. You know, the big commercial players with the deep pockets you need to build these absolutely gigantic models. And what's so fascinating here is the clash of philosophies. In one corner, you've got OpenAI's GPT models. They're just relentlessly pushing for raw power, cutting-edge performance, the absolute best of the best. And in the other corner, you have Anthropic's Claude, which was basically built from the ground up with safety as its #1 priority. Its whole constitutional AI thing isn't just a feature, it's in its DNA, which is why it's a go-to for sensitive fields like healthcare and finance. And then you've got Google. They're playing a totally different game. Their model, Gemini, isn't always about having the #1 score on some benchmark. Its real power is its home field advantage, the Google ecosystem. It's being woven into everything, search, Gmail, Android, you name it. It's a strategy that's less about raw power and more about being everywhere you already are. But hold on, this isn't just a story about a few megacorporations. There's this incredible counter-movement that's been gaining a ton of steam, open source. And their goal is to basically democratize this technology, to put it in the hands of everyone. And two of the biggest names here are taking different routes. You've got Meta's Llama 3, which is super powerful and designed to be tweaked and fine-tuned for all sorts of custom jobs. Then there's this really cool European company, Mistral. They're obsessed with efficiency, making models that are so lean they can actually run on a regular laptop. What's the big takeaway? With open source, you get more control, more customization, and way more privacy. And you can't talk about challengers without mentioning Grok. It's carving out a really smart niche by going all in on developers. You know, the people actually building stuff. Their pitch is pretty simple. It's affordable, you can run it on your own machines for total privacy, and it's built to be flexible. It's a huge deal for anyone who wants to avoid being locked into one company's ecosystem. All right, so we've covered the past and the present. Now for the really fun part, the future. We're looking at some fascinating findings from a new report by Virtualization Options LLC, a technology research firm based out of Colorado. And what they're seeing, well, it looks like a total game changer, and it's called GPT-5. To really get your head around the leap we're talking about, just look at this number. 272,000. That's how many tokens, think of them as pieces of words, GPT-5 can supposedly hold in its working memory. That's like giving it a 500-page book to read and then having a conversation where it remembers every single detail from chapter 1 to the end. It's a mind-boggling amount of context.
But the real magic isn't just its size, it's how it thinks. So instead of one giant brain trying to do everything, GPT-5 is more like a team of specialists. When you ask it a question, this little router up front takes a look and says, is this a coding problem, a logic puzzle? Then it sends your request to the best expert for that specific job. It's just a much smarter, more efficient way to work. And the results of this new design are, well, they're pretty stunning, especially for developers. Look at this. On a really tough software engineering test, GPT-4o scored a very respectable 55%. But GPT-5, it jumps to almost 75%. That's not just a little better, that's a quantum leap. That's the difference between a helpful assistant and a true coding partner. And it's not just coding. The improvements are across the board. It's way better at handling complex tasks that involve multiple steps and using other software tools. It's also more reliable. It hallucinates or, just makes stuff up a lot less. And its reasoning skills are just on another level for things like logic puzzles. But let's pump the brakes for a second, because the report is also very clear. It's not perfect. Far from it. It can still get confused by really complex instructions, it still hallucinates, even if it's less often, and sometimes that smart router picks the wrong specialist for the job. So yeah, it's a huge step forward, but that need for a human in the loop, it's more important than ever. So after all that, all this power, all this complexity, what does it actually mean for you? Where do you fit in? That brings us to our final and maybe most important section, figuring out your role in this new world. First off, there's no such thing as the best LLM. The real goal is to find the right LLM for what you need to do. So you've got to ask yourself the right questions. What am I actually trying to do? Do I need top-tier coding skills, or is maximum safety the most important thing? Do I need the total control of an open-source model? Thinking this through is absolutely key. And this quote, right from the research, really nails it. This might be the single most important takeaway. No matter how incredible these models become, at the end of the day, they are sophisticated tools. They are not independent agents. They need our guidance, our critical eye, and our judgment to be used well. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. As these AI tools get better and better at handling the complex technical stuff, what does that mean for us? What's our job? As AI takes over the how, maybe our most vital human skill becomes figuring out the what and the why. Something to think about.